Let's talk about villains. Everyone knows that Disney villains are among the most popular characters in their family, from the Evil Queen to Maleficent to Ursula to Greg German and Bolt. Okay, maybe not that guy. But in general, Disney films are known for their strong conflict of good versus evil, and the dark-hearted Disney villains were motivated enough to be engaging, but evil enough to root against. But then, something changed. Ah yes, Pixar. The success of Toy Story shook the storytelling box in many ways. Symbolically good heroes replaced with flawed, everyman characters. Love plots? Gone. Characters breaking out into song? Passé. But perhaps the biggest change that Pixar brought in was the transition from villains to antagonists. Let's do a quick story theory lesson. In stories, the main character, also called the protagonist, is usually in search of some sort of want, such as, I want much more than this provincial life, or I want to be where the people are, or school is boring, I want to go to a trippy psychedelic world with talking flowers and mushrooms that make you grow about 9 times your normal height. Hey, we all need a hobby. But in order for there to be a conflict, the protagonist needs to encounter an obstacle between themselves and what they want. Now, an antagonist can be a villain, somebody who's actively rooting against the protagonist's want. Or they can simply be neutral and have no concern over what the protagonist wants. For example, in Toy Story, Woody's big goal is to be Andy's favorite toy, and that means his biggest obstacle is Buzz Lightyear. And that's where Toy Story was so innovative for Disney. No, I'll get to you later. Toy Story spawned a whole bunch of experimentations in plot structure, from A Bug's Life, the liar revealed plot, which is my least favorite plot of all time. Monsters, Inc., classic comedy. And what I specifically want to talk about today, Finding Nemo. Arguably, Finding Nemo is the first Disney animated film to be centered around a father. Although, fathers certainly play a role in films such as Pinocchio or The Lion King. In general, dads don't tend to have a lot to do in Disney storytelling. Before Finding Nemo, we had such dads as Geppetto, Bambi's father, Mr. Darling, King Stefan, Pongo, King Triton, Maurice, Mufasa, Powhatan, Zeus, Faju. But with Finding Nemo, not only is Marlin very important to the plot, he's actually the main character, or the protagonist for the plot. And what is his goal? To keep Nemo safe. Or more accurately, wrapped up in bubble wrap and superglued to an enemy. There is, of course, one major obstacle to making sure that nothing happens to Nemo. Nemo. Yes, you may have caught on, but Nemo is actually, structurally speaking, the antagonist of Finding Nemo. After all, the biggest obstacle to Marlin making sure nothing happens to Nemo is Nemo. Now, where does that leave the villain of the story, which is the dentist, or by extension, Darla? Well, we'll have to dive into the character chessboard a little bit to figure that out.
Interested in writing but feeling overwhelmed or not quite sure where to get started? Presenting AutoCrit, the world's smartest editing platform and online home for writers. With more than 28 automated reports, you can polish your manuscript, tackle simple errors like too many filler words, repetitive words, or generic descriptions, avoid amateur mistakes, and learn how to pattern your writing after best-selling authors. Beyond the software, our extensive online community has a friendly group of fellow writers to help with those lonely times behind the keyboard. We also regularly welcome special guests within the industry and have workshops to help writers with all aspects of writing, from planning, editing, to publishing. AutoCrit is also home to classes teaching the basics of writing from idea to execution in popular genres such as horror or fantasies. With our help, you can unlock all the story ideas you've kept in your head far too long. Join us at autocrit.com and begin your author journey today.
Now, remember when we were talking about the protagonist and the antagonist? The protagonist wants something and the antagonist is the obstacle? Well, there are 2 more characters I want to talk about. The relationship character is the character that explains to the protagonist what they need to do to get past the obstacle. Someone like the Blue Fairy or Grandmother Willow. There's another character that I often like to call the distraction character. This character represents the wrong choices that the protagonist could make. For example, Foul Fellow in Pinocchio, or Timon in The Lion King. In Finding Nemo, the dentist and Darla basically play this role. They are personifications of Marlin's concern, a reason to worry about Nemo. Dory, however, is the relationship character. She explains to Marlin that, well, if nothing ever happens to Nemo, then nothing ever happens to Nemo, and that's a terrible life. So you can see with the character complement how Finding Nemo differs a lot from a traditional Disney film. Now where does that bring Little Mermaid? Little Mermaid is similar. Ariel's biggest goal is to be where the people are. Who's the biggest obstacle? Her father. Who's the character who doesn't have her best interests in heart? Ursula. Who's the character that does? Sebastian. It's not a surprise that the story ends with the relationship character, Sebastian, convincing the antagonist, Triton, that he's kind of wrong. And that's the difference between Finding Nemo and The Little Mermaid. Ultimately, Ariel's right, whereas in Finding Nemo, Marlin's wrong. However, both would be considered happy endings, even though, structurally speaking, Marlin doesn't actually get what he wants. It's story tweaks like this that can make Pixar films seem either less predictable or more nuanced than a typical Disney animated film. Now, that doesn't mean they're necessarily better, but for people that were used to that same Disney structure over and over again with the same basic elements, came across rather innovative. Until Disney Animation decided to get rid of their villains as well. But that's another video. I hope you enjoyed this look at the structure underneath the film Finding Nemo. Please like, hit the bell, subscribe so we can present more content like this. Oh, and let us know what films you would like to see us dissect. Thanks again to our friends at AutoCrit, and keep those stories going. Bye!